have this for the loving stop.
How come you don't return my call?
Are you following me? Stop.
Where are you going?
Well, I'm going home. I'm afraid. I'm afraid it's not going to work.
Halloween Eve, 1982, scary monsters and super creeps roam the streets of West Hollywood, stalking their unsuspecting prey. 22-year-old actress Dominique Dunne is going over lines with her co-star David Castro in This House Behind Me on Rangely Avenue. Dominique is coming off a career high playing Dana Freeling in the supernatural horror movie Poltergeist. Ads for the movie are all over the airways, with Dominique screaming the second most famous line from the movie. What's happening? Dominique was hopeful. It was a new beginning for the newly single actress. But what happened next is scarier than any horror movie and more terrifying than any supposed curse. On this particular Halloween Eve, a monster was making his way to Dominique's house. A house she once shared with this monster. You see, like so many women, Dominique knew her monster. Let's go behind the sign. Dominique Ellen Dunne was born into a life of privilege in Santa Monica, California on November 23, 1959. Her mother, Ellen Beatrice, was a ranching heiress confined to a wheelchair by MS. Dominique's father, Dominique Dunne, was an acclaimed author and investigative journalist. He would go on to cover his daughter's murder trial for Vanity Fair.
My mother wanted me to go to Radcliffe, and my father wanted me to go to Yale, and I just wanted to go to Vegas.
Dominique's brother was actor-director Griffin Dunne, who appeared in movies like Martin Scorsese's After Hours and the Madonna clunker Who's That Girl?
Wait a minute! Who is this woman? She's not my fiancée!
Griffin's breakout role came a year before his sister's murder in 1981 in the John Landis horror comedy An American Werewolf in London.
Ted, you gonna help me up or what?
Dominique's aunt and uncle were married novelists Joan fucking Didion and John Gregory Dunne.
I think that you're the most wonderful aunt a girl could ever have.
Didion's The Year of Magical Thinking, which she wrote after the sudden death of her husband, totally got me through my grandmother's death. And Didion's White Album totally gets me through everyday life in LA.
Totally.
Dominique was Hollywood royalty, and yeah, her name might have got her through the door, but like her brother, she was super talented.
That's how I got the job.
So it should come as no surprise that Dominique's career took off right out of high school.
You know, it's only 2 months since we graduated, and already Francine's going places.
Dominique starred in a bunch of TV movies that seem rather dated now. I've watched them all.
Oh, yeah?
She's the best part in every single one of them.
Oh, come on. This is my guest. This is my invited guest, and you are treating him very shabbily. Quite frankly, sir, I am appalled.
Despite a nationwide pattern of beatings, rapes, and murders, young women continue to thumb rides, often from the same street corner where they know another girl hitched her way to death.
In 1979, Dominique made her debut in the TV movie Diary of a Teenage Hitchhiker, a made-for-TV movie warning teenage girls of the dangers of hitchhiking, while a psychopath is on the loose, hunting the highway for his victims.
You look beat. Hop in.
That's okay. Thanks anyway.
Dominique played a pregnant hitchhiker.
And I'm absolutely starved. You're eating for 2 now, Cap. Oh, thanks a lot.
After having the unfortunate luck of hitching a ride with a psychopath, Dominique's character gets beaten up and winds up in the hospital.
Scared, huh?
Stop.
Not so sure now.
It's unnerving to watch, knowing what would happen to her in real life.
I felt so stupid. I couldn't even describe him. I had a miscarriage. And I was pregnant.
Something good comes out of everything.
She next appeared in the TV movie Valentine Magic on Love Island.
Waiting to be found by you and me.
It's totally White Lotus and 9 Perfect Strangers of its day. And it looks like at any minute it's about to turn into softcore porn.
Hi, Charles.
Oh, hi, Cheryl.
Oh, you remember my name.
Well, I never forget a pretty girl or a pretty face.
Oh, yeah.
Dominique had a reoccurring role in the TV drama Breaking Away. It only aired for 7 episodes before being canceled, but Dominique's performance is a highlight of the show.
And now, best of all, you got me too.
You can't take your eyes off of her when she's on screen.
Fantastical!
She's so good at it. I keep saying that. Everything that I watch of her, no matter the quality of it, she still stands out.
Quite a guy.
She booked supporting roles in popular 1980s TV shows like Heart to Heart with Robert Wagner and Fame.
For my audition, I would like to sing Blue Moon.
For that.
She co-starred with Valerie Harper in the TV movie The Day the Loving Stopped.
I'm afraid of what happens when the loving stops.
What an aptly titled movie. Dominique plays a would-be bride who's about to marry her college sweetheart, but she's having doubts. The TV movie's mostly told in flashbacks, as Judy and her younger sister Debbie, played by a very young Alex Sheedy, reflect on their parents' marriage.
Look, if you don't want to wear the dress, you don't have to. I don't know if I can go through with it. Hey, you don't stop. I just can't stop thinking about what happened. That's all in the past. Well, I can't stop thinking about it. Just knock it off.
Yet another role foreshadowing Dominique's not-so-distant future.
I'm afraid.
It's morning again in America.
Dominique's big break came in 1981 when she was cast in her first and only feature film, Poltergeist. This is the house.
The house looks just like the one next to it.
The ultimate haunted house movie scared up $77 million at the box office, making it the highest-grossing horror movie of 1982. The house hasn't changed much. Other than the trees, it looks exactly the same. It's crazy. I wonder if they have a pool in the backyard.
Steve, tell me something. Are you happy here?
Yes, I am, sir.
Poltergeist was one of my top 5 horror movies growing up. It's one of those horror movies that still scares me as an adult, and I don't even believe in ghosts. Dominique portrayed Dana Freeling, the teenage daughter of the family who's terrorized by the evil spirits. It's revealed that their dream home, this home, was built on an ancient Indian burial ground. At the end of the movie, the house gets sucked in on itself. As you can see, that was special effects. The house is still here. The movie opened on June 4th, 1982. Dominique would die exactly 5 months later on November 4th. Dominique was the first cast member to die under tragic or mysterious circumstances. 5 other cast members would follow, leading some fans to speculate of a so-called poltergeist curse. Strangely enough, Dominique and her on-screen sister, Heather O'Rourke, who had died tragically at the age of 12, are both buried here at Pierce Brothers, alongside Marilyn Monroe, Truman Capote, and Natalie Wood, just to name a few.
You son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? Why?
Here in the street, when Dominique's car pulls up and she gets out of the car and she stands right here and she's looking up at the house screaming, "What's happening?
What's happening? What's happening?
It's so cool being here. On a fall day like today in October, ooh, the spirits are alive today. No pun intended. With Poltergeist in the can, all eyes were on the promising young newcomer, and Dominique soon attracted the attention of John Thomas Sweeney, an up-and-coming sous chef at the celeb soap to Mama San here on Melrose Avenue. The restaurant is now Cookie's Pot Shop.
None of us liked him. There was something creepy about this guy.
Mae Masson was walking distance to Dominique's West Hollywood pad. The restaurant was notorious for its unlisted number, an epic line of Rolls Royces parked out front. Okay. The restaurant lost its luster after Dominique's murder at the hands of its sous chef, Sweeney. It closed 10 years after it opened in 1985. I lived 4 or 5 years on the second floor there, right down the street from Mama San. One of the weirdest Hollywood memories I have living here was the day Michael Jackson died. And on the news, we saw them flying Michael's body from UCLA Medical Center to the coroner's office in downtown LA. And I remember saying, oh my God, they're gonna pass over our building. And we ran out onto the balcony just in time to see them fly Michael Jackson's coffin overhead. It was crazy. Dominique and Sweeney met at a Hollywood Hills party.
Hi.
Hi. He was 7 years her senior. Sweeney was desperate to fit into the glamorous life he saw on full display at the restaurant every night. He wanted to be part of the glitterati.
Oh boy, all this hugging and kissing.
How's the luck?
Dominique and Sweeney soon became an item, but
So you like me?
she was in trouble from the get-go.
I don't know how to tell him.
Sweeney's emotionally and physically abusive.
Bye-bye, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Dominique tried to break it off with him several times, but the creep couldn't take a hint. Dominique wrote a letter to Sweeney in hopes of getting through to him.
I'm afraid. Stop. I think what you did stinks.
On August 27, 1982, Sweeney attacked Dominique during an argument and yanked out clumps of her hair.
I hate him, Julie. I just hate him.
Dominique fled to her mother's house, but the 6-foot-tall Sweeney showed up on her mother's doorstep, banging on the door and windows, demanding to be let inside. Dominique's mother, who was wheelchair-bound due to MS, confronted Sweeney, threatening to call the police.
Mother, I want everything to be peaceful.
Mom, really? Everything's okay.
A few days later, Dominique returned to the home she shared with Sweeney on Rangely Avenue and took her abuser back.
Seems like a nice guy. Yeah, he's smart too, boy. He really worked his way up.
This is far from unusual. On average, a woman tries to leave her abusive partner 7 times before she succeeds.
Don't you understand that?
The very next day, Sweeney beats the shit out of Dominique. And 2 days later, Dominique guest starred on the TV police drama Hill Street Blues.
Previously on Hill Street Blues.
Dominique played a teen who was physically abused by her mother. The show's makeup artist would later reveal that there was very little work done to Dominique's face. The bruises you see in the show are actual bruises.
You took the baby, you little crap!
She filmed that scene literally 2 days after Sweeney beat her. 2 days. I don't know how she did it. I don't know how she showed up on set to film those scenes. The show would air on the eve of Dominique's funeral. Her parents, Ellen and Dominic, watched from home in silence.
She became frightened. She never told us he was abusive.
The episode was dedicated to Dominique. Dominique and Sweeney got into their final fight on September 28th at the home the couple shared here on Rangely Avenue. Sweeney grabbed Dominique by the throat and threw her to the floor. He then climbed on top of her and started strangling her. He almost strangled her unconscious. Dominique's friend Brian Cook was staying at the Rangely house with the couple when he heard the two arguing.
The whole thing was a lie. I liked a person that I thought you were, but you were somebody else.
Cook recalled hearing the most horrendous sound he had ever heard in his entire life. A loud gagging sound.
I can't believe you did this.
Dominique ran down the hallway and barged into Cook's room with marks all over her neck. Sweeney was close behind her, looking so scary and denying that he had even touched her. Sweeney convinced Dominique to come back to bed. She pretended to comply, but she snuck out the bathroom window when Sweeney was back in bed. When Sweeney heard Dominique's electric blue VW Bug start up in the driveway, he ran out of the house and jumped on the hood.
Will you leave me alone?
Dominique stopped the car long enough for Sweeney to jump off the hood. And when he did, she sped off. Sweeney, angry as could be, chased after her all the way down the street. How terrifying that must have been for Dominique. Dominique laid low for a few days, traveling around town when she knew Sweeney would be at work. When she finally got up the nerve, Dominique called Sweeney and ended the relationship for good this time. Dominique had just been cast as Robin Maxwell in the sci-fi TV miniseries V. V would go on to become one of the most watched miniseries of all time. Dominique would die before principal filming began. The role had to be recast, but according to the director, Dominique appeared in one scene where the Maxwells and others watched the LA alien mothership arrive. Her back is all that scene. Dominique was here at her West Hollywood home, going over lines with her V co-star David Packard. She was on the phone with a female friend when Sweeney had the operator break into the call.
Oh God, it's Sweeney. Let me get him off the phone.
10 minutes later, Sweeney showed up on her doorstep.
Are you following me?
Where are you going?
Around 8:30 p.m., Sweeney left the restaurant and proceeded on foot to Dominique's. It's only about a 10-minute walk. Sweeney must have passed at least 100 people and a dozen Halloween parties on his way to Dominique's. And in all that time, his anger only grew. Watch out! So 20 minutes after he called her, and 10 minutes after he left the restaurant, scumbag Sweeney arrived at Dominique's.
Are you following me?
Through the window, he saw her on the couch with Packer. Sweeney saw red instantly. He started banging on the front door. At first, Dominique would only speak to him through the lock door. She had had the locks changed after they broke up. What's the point of having the locks changed if you're going to open the door? Sweeney convinced Dominique to step out onto the front porch where they continued arguing. And then, static.
Do you understand this? I can't!
Sweeney would later say that his next memory was of being on top of Dominique with his hands wrapped around her throat. Nobody knows what really happened that night besides Sweeney, and who knows if he's telling the truth. I'm gonna say he's probably not telling the truth. Packer told police that he heard a smacking sound, 2 screams, and a thud.
Feel free to jump in anytime.
He then called the police, but got the wrong police department. You see, this was before the nationwide 911 system was put in place, but instead of hanging up and calling another police department, he hung up and called a friend.
If I died tonight, John Sweeney did it.
Packer snuck out of the house through the back door, which I find to be a real shitty move. As he was making his way down the driveway, he noticed Sweeney in the bushes, kneeling over an unconscious Dominique. You see, Sweeney had dragged Dominique's body from the front porch to her driveway, through the bushes, to her next-door neighbor's driveway. When the police arrived, Sweeney met them in the driveway with his hands in the air.
I killed my girlfriend, and I tried to kill myself.
But Dominique wasn't dead yet. According to scumbag Sweeney, when he came to from choking Dominique, he noticed that she wasn't breathing. Duh. He tried to get her to walk, but he ended up dropping her. He then supposedly tried to administer CPR, but when that didn't work, Sweeney decided to commit suicide. Sweeney told police that he went into the house, downed 2 bottles of pills, came back outside, and laid down next to Dominique awaiting to die. But investigators aren't buying it whatsoever. First off, there are no pills found in his system. From the moment he stopped choking Dominique, Sweeney was plotting his defense. When Dominique arrived at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, mere blocks from her house, her heart had come to a full stop. Machines restarted it, but there was no way to reverse the damage done to her brain. If the story couldn't get sadder, while Dominique's father, Dominic, was keeping vigil at her bedside,
Daddy?
Commercials for Poltergeist were all over the TV with Dominique yelling, "What's happening?" over and over, as if she was calling out for her dad. Dominic would yell back at the TV,
I don't know what's happening, my darling.
It knows what scares you.
After 5 days, on November 4th, 1982, Dominique's family turned off her life support. Her heart stopped instantly. She would have turned 23 in 19 days.
He wants me to forget all this ever happened. I won't, though.
Sweeney was charged with murder, and the case went to trial almost a year later. Investigators discovered that from 1977 to 1980, Sweeney lived with a woman named Lillian Pierce, who would testify at Sweeney's trial that Sweeney had beat her on 10 separate occasions, even putting her in the hospital once. Sweeney made damn sure that his ex-girlfriend's testimony would be stricken from the record. During Pierce's testimony, Sweeney jumped up from the defense table and headed straight for the door. The bailiff and 4 guards tackled him to the ground. Sweeney's lawyer had the nerve to yell out,
"Don't hurt him!"
A sobbing Sweeney was handcuffed to his chair and apologized profusely to the court. He implored the judge that he wasn't trying to escape. He was just emotionally distressed by Pierce's testimony. And the judge totally accepts his apology.
We know what a strain you were under, Mr. Sweeney.
And the jury never got to hear Pierce's testimony. It's like Sweeney knew what he was doing.
He's smart too, boy.
John Thomas Sweeney choked Dominique for over 4 minutes. The prosecutor held up a stopwatch in court during his opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm going to show you how long it took for Dominique Dunne to die.
For over 4 minutes, the courtroom said in stunned silence. Dominic, who covered his daughter's murder trial for Vanity Fair, wrote,
"A gunshot or knife stab is over an instant. Strangulation is an eternity."
8 days of deliberation. The jury acquitted Sweeney on second-degree murder, but found him guilty on the lesser charge, voluntary manslaughter. The Dunne family was outraged by this verdict, as they should have been.
And this judge thanked the jury on behalf of both families. And I stood up in the courtroom and I said, "Not my family. Don't thank them on behalf of my family. And I screamed at him in the courtroom, and I said, "You kept important information away from this jury." I ruined him. I ruined him.
And just when you think it can't get any worse, it does. Sweeney was released on parole in September 1986 after serving 3 years and 7 months. 3 years and 7 months for the murder of Dominique Dunne. 3 months after his release, Sweeney was hired as the head chef at the Chronicle, an upscale restaurant here in Santa Monica. It wasn't until I started doing research for this episode that I realized that I worked at the Chronicle as well, but it was called the Victorian. I was a cater waiter back in the early 2000s. When Dominique's brother Griffin and their mother Ellen found out that Sweeney was working at the Chronicle, they stood outside their restaurant handing out pamphlets to patrons that read,
"The food you will eat tonight was cooked by the hands that killed Dominique Dunne.
You are the most wonderful brother."
Sweeney eventually had to quit due to the protests. He moved to Northern California and changed his name. Dominique's father, Dominic, would later admit that he hired the now-in-prison private investigator, Anthony Pellicano, to help him put a hit out on Sweeney. Thankfully, Pellicano talked Dominic out of it. Dominic died of bladder cancer in August 2009.
Well, no, we didn't know that he was abusive, you see, until it was too late. Everything in my life changed. I mean, you know, things that have been important to me once weren't important to me anymore. Things that, everything changes. Everything, you know, it's just such a jarring thing.
Dominique's mother, Ellen, co-founded Justice for Homicide Victims. The group is responsible for changing several laws in the country. Ellen died on January 9th, 1997, 19 days before her 65th birthday. A coincidence reminiscent of Dominique's death, who died 19 days prior to her 23rd birthday. Every day I walk past Dominique's former residence on my way home from work, and every day I think about Dominique. And every year, on the anniversary of her death, I leave a rose in the driveway. Wherever Dominique is, I hope she knows she hasn't been forgotten.
Roses. Are they really magic?
Nice meeting you. Have a nice life. Well, you're one of those people you feel that you've known your whole life, you know?